Hello, welcome everyone to our third debate at Critics Week this year. My name is Charlie Bendisch. I'm working for the Critics Week since 2018. And yeah, I'm very happy to talk with you tonight and with our 5 guests on stage about the 3 films we just saw. First of all, I would like to introduce our guests. We are having the 3 filmmakers of the films you just saw. And there's Shambhavi Kaul, the director of Slow Shift, the short film from the beginning. And we have Éléonore Saintagnan with us, the director of CAMPING DU LAC. And Natalia del Mar Kašik, the director of Horse Girl. And yeah, if this is your first evening at Critics Week, you might wonder why there are 2 more guests on stage. The idea behind it is to undermine a bit the routine of the Q&As at film festivals and expand a bit the discussion around the presented films by bringing multiple voices to the table. So I'm very happy that there are Khaled Abdulwahed and Tomás Guarnaccia with us today. Yes, Khaled is also a filmmaker. Maybe some of you have seen Purple Sea that he made with Amel Azakut a few years ago, and which was shown at Forum Expanded at the Berlinale, for example. Or yeah, for those who have not seen this film, I recommend it a lot, actually. And also his new film Background that premiered at FIT Marseille and was also shown at Cinema Transtopia in Wedding or at Duisburger Filmwoche. Yes. And Tomás Guarnaccia is a film critic from Argentina, and he writes mostly for Las Veredas and for Los Ojos Abiertos. And yeah, he's one of the Berlinale Talents as well this year. So yeah, welcome as well. So yeah, thank you all for coming. And I'm going to, we are going to start at the beginning with a few questions about animals in film. And to draw a bit background to this discussion, and to mention also yesterday, which was a discussion. Yesterday we discussed extractivism a lot in cinema, and actually also maybe you have seen our posters. There's an animal this year on our poster, and also on our postcards. And at the beginning, I thought it's a cow, but actually it's a goat. And talking about cows, last year I saw a video installation called Wolfen by Tobias Seloni. And it was about the biggest film stock production company and also fabric in East Germany called ORWO. And ORWO delivered to the Soviet Union, but also to non-socialist countries abroad. And one of the largest customers was India, actually. And in return, the GDR received cow bones from India, which are bleached in the sun and are the raw material for high-quality film gelatine, which the workers smeared onto the film strips. Yes, this just as a background why cinema and animals are deeply connected, even in the material. And yes, now I wanted to start actually with the last film because it's maybe the freshest impression for everyone. And yeah, also obviously if you have questions, you can ask questions later. But yeah, first question goes to you, Natalia, and also with a small anecdote because the German title Pferdemädchen is usually a very pejorative term in German language. I have personally 2 associations with the term. My sister is definitely a Pferdemädchen, a horse girl, because she's working with horses since she was a teenager. And it's absolutely fascinating for me how she communicates with horses and all this. And because she was my bigger sister, I watched a lot of horse girl movies in the when I was young. So in the 90s, like films like Black Beauty or The Horse Whisperer with Robert Redford or the animation film Spirit. Yeah, but on the other hand, I had this personal experience, but also Pferdemädchen in my school was a term for like rich girls who talk about their horses all the time and live in their very protected, isolated world. So when I watch, that's your film plays with this cliche, I guess, and it's a very warm-hearted perspective to it. So maybe you can talk a bit about what this term means to you. Yes.
Oh, yeah, now it works. I mean, it's interesting because, like, actually I made this in Spain with Svieta, who grew up in Spain, so she doesn't have the notion of the name, or it doesn't have the same connotation. But for me, it was clear that if the film would have a title, it would have both titles, or Pferdemädchen, because for me, it was like reappropriating this notion, and maybe this notion of like, maybe that has all these connotations, but can also have a different meaning, and it depends on the person. And for her, especially, she's a, for me at least, the starting point for the film was her. It's Svieta, and Svieta is this close family friend's daughter. I've known her my whole life. We're friends, and she has this amazing ability to recreate animals. Not only horses, but cats, and she inhabits them. And I really found it beautiful, and it connected also to my childhood. And I kind of felt so protective of her ability to recreate these animals. And I was so afraid of, like, when would this moment come when she grows up and won't do it anymore. So that was, for me, the necessity to work with her and create this film. And it was also an urgency because she's now 15, so for me it was really the moment of like, okay, this summer we have to do the film together, and it's an homage to her actually as a person.
One second question: when I was talking with a team member about your film, and we were thinking about like other films where animals are created or performed by humans. There were some, especially one very famous scene of a film of The Square by Ruben Östlund, and this man that Terry Notary who is imitating an ape, and it's a very brutal scene and a very about masculinity, and it's at an art exhibition dinner, very sleek surrounding. So your film was since I talked about it, like a counter image a bit to this scene completely, because it's so warm, and so the scene is one shot. Your film has these twists in editing that are so beautiful, and I was thinking about like, I don't know if it's important to you to oppose these kind of male authors a bit like Ruben Östlund or like this cinema.
I mean, it wasn't conscious, actually. I didn't think about it. I think for me, really, it was this portrait of being a child, actually. I mean, maybe, and I've never thought about it, actually. Okay. But I think we have this ability to play and incarnate as children that we maybe lose. And I think it's I think for her at least, or what I think it's not only the incarnation, but it's also like how serious you take it. And I think that's what really fascinated me about her, because like in the collaboration with her, she was really, really serious about it. And she would tell me that if I would maybe like, because the last part I have the camera in my hand and I ride, and then I film like the perspective of the horse, and she really corrected me in how wrong I was doing it, because she knows, and she, if she inhabits it, she is the horse, and it's even difficult for her to come out. So for me, it was more about the seriousness of how if you're a child, you really incarnate sometimes the images you create in yourself, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, maybe directly to this, Khaled, we talked a bit about before the films that you also were fascinated by this playfulness, not only of Horse Girl, but in general of all the films we saw. Can you elaborate a bit on this?
Yeah, sure. It's. I will start with. I felt about your film. It's so brave. You trust so much the cinema space. It's so. Thank you for the word. It's so fresh and it's so simple, and it's so touching. And yes, the playfulness, I can relate to it. It's how much we need it, and how much also you are canceling the barriers between us and between the horse, between the animal. And I felt it also. This is very very political standpoint of view, and I really like it.
Yeah, in which sense a political standpoint?
It just, I mean, a human acting like an animal. It has this exchange. Also, it has a respect of the animal. It's and it's not a performance that meant to be. I mean, all the films I didn't. After watching a little bit, after I start them, I knew that those films I shouldn't expect anything what they're gonna tell me. At the end, maybe they will not tell me anything, but just I will enjoy the trip watching them, and or to feel them. It's not about delivering the message, rather than having this, to live this experience with a filmmaker and with a protagonist, with a landscape, and with the joy of playfulness. Yeah, I was looking for a word how to describe your film, and yes, fresh. It's very fresh.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, talking about the animals in your film, Shambhavi. Not only the monkeys, also in your previous films, in Night Noon, for example, there's this beautiful ending where we are listening to the breath of a dog that converges like with the chirp sound of bird. And so, yeah, why are animals interesting for you as a cinematic protagonist?
I guess for me, one of the projects in all of my films, I've been sort of concerned in thinking about, and this a little bit relates to the conversations we've been having already, sort of pushing against the human-centric framework that we have in cinema always. And I do think it's a political project, even if it's not like in the sense of giving a message. But yeah, so I feel it's not just animals. For me, it's also backdrops. You could call it landscapes, or all the parts that make up the mise en scène of cinema. That's not the like narrative agent. All the people who are like supposedly supposed to be in support, or all the entities that are in support of yeah, so the films are kind of playing on that. That's my interest, play on and to find I'm very interested in narrative, but I think once you take out the sort of like agent, then I think it becomes a different kind of narrative, right? It stops being linear. That's one thing. And there's not as much, to speak to Horse Girl, there's not as much of that sort of separation between this is not as separated. It's kind of like a sort of flow.
Yeah, and also I don't know, but in your film the monkeys are the only protagonists. It's very the like humans are absent, and they bring also another or different types of temporalities in it, because they have this mythological background to the space or relation to the space of Fampi, and then they are also in the present. They are living there. So I was looking up on YouTube about this place, and a lot of videos of these monkeys there, but not, and obviously very different to what we just saw. And but it's also talking about this narrative. You have all the time this feeling that something is approaching because the stones are moving and all this. So yeah, there are these different layers to them that they bring also to your film, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the time thing is, yeah, as you said, is the other thing, because this is a 15th century site in India. The rocks are some of the oldest in the world. So one part is I wanted to sort of I was taught how to use the mic earlier and I've been making a mistake. Person, you know. Yeah, it's ancient, but of course it's also like it's also present day because people come there, and moreover because it's an archaeological site, you can't people can't live there, but the langurs can. But then they also have a really symbiotic relationship with the humans who come there, because there are a lot of temples and humans come and they sort of eat. They're usually fed by the humans, like whatever, you know, bananas and other things. So anyway, I mean, that doesn't make it into the film, but that's why the site's interesting, because it already presents these kinds of layered time scales. I mean, from the geological, like these oldest rocks, to the mythological, to cultural, and then this idea of museums making things static, but then animals making them alive in a way, right? So we have a lot of different kinds of and I think that's the other, that when I was talking about you take the protagonist out and suddenly you have non-linear time. It's sort of like this, you know, when you don't have action, and then you start to look for narrative on the side of action, you get a much more interesting sort of narration of time, actually, which is what I think is the real draw for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is an action, and these moving stones are an incredible action. But yeah, going back to maybe politics and animals, I was reading an interview with you, and yeah, there you referred a bit to I think you were asked like what is, like, if you prefer editing or shooting, and you said the truth is I struggle so much while shooting. I find pointing at things very uncomfortable. It gives me the feeling of grabbing, like I'm being opportunistic or acquisitory. In one shoot, I tried to inhabit a dog's perspective as a way to circumvent this feeling. I shot everything from the ground level, but I was also a kind of play acting. I suppose I was trying to be anything but man. It's this perspectivation, a way to avoid this extractive mode of filmmaking and this man.
And I mean, in a way, this is a little silly, right? Because but yes, I mean, I think it helps in a way, you know, just to sort of like make it more complicated in a way. And I was very serious about it shooting. I was using one of the I forget what it's called. It's the low tripod. What is somebody here knows the name for it. Why am I forgetting? Bartla. Yeah, it was. I wasn't calling it that, but I know what that is. But it's sort of like that, like really low. It doesn't have legs, you know. It's just the thing. But yeah, I feel like I got bad knees after. I was sort of limping a little, but yeah.
Okay, but
that wasn't a good answer.
No, good. But you used this shot in the end in the.
That is
in
in Night Noon. Actually.
Yeah, Night Noon.
Yes, the whole film was shot like that. I shot everything, like everything. But then I started finding ways, you know, like climbing on top of a rock. Or, you know, you can find ways to get the shot that you want. But yeah, I was very strict about it.
Maybe to bring yours in the discussion, Tomás. Zooming a bit out, for me it seems that recently a lot of films followed the desire of transforming into an animal, or to think from the position of an animal. Maybe it's because you mentioned it, to like oppose the anthropocentric gaze and this human-centered perspective, and to get to a non-human perspective. But yeah, just for the people who don't follow the festival sphere so much, there was Andrea Arnold's Cow, which appropriated the perspective of a cow. Then Viktor Kosakowski's Gunda, which mostly follows the family of pigs. Then Io, where we look through the eyes into the dreams of a donkey. And yeah, also at this year's Berlinale, there's Pepe in the competition, a film about a hippo. And there's a 2-hour documentary about cats, a 3-hour documentary about zoos. So yeah, why is cinema so obsessed with animals right now?
First of all, I must say that I think that the three films have political point of views in this aspect of the anthropocentric point of view. But to me, also it's very curious to be talking about animals, because I'm in the Berlinale Talents with press and colleagues and so on. And yesterday we were talking about how this very subject about how many films we are seeing each day in festivals with certain tropes, like similarities from all over around the world. And we were discussing a particular film that's a Brazilian film that is an encounters, and we saw in that film that they used like certain similarities that we can find in films from everywhere in the world nowadays. It was like this metaphorical usage of an animal. It was you could find also like a dancing with electronic music. You can find many things that nowadays you can find everywhere. So, but going back to the thing of the animals, I think that first of all, I think that I like movies that aspire to meaning and that do not hand you the meaning in a way. So my problem might be in this case of the animal and the usage of the animal, when the animal is kind of used as a metaphor in a way, like it's I like this word being used in a way, I mean when you do a point of view of a dog, of a cow, I mean you're putting the camera, the point of view, and somewhere else. So I don't see any problem with that. I think that's a decentralization of the gaze in a way. But I don't want to use the word exploitation in a way. But yeah, I have certain problems with that kind of use of the animals, and seeing the films. I think I have to congratulate the programmers, because it was very interesting seeing the three films together, because you have like a wide aspect of this, I think for me, kind of, I don't know if problem, but particularity of nowadays. And seeing the first film, I was very sure that when there was no exploitation at all on those monkeys, you somehow films them, shoots them, and they gaze back at the camera in a way. That image is very strong for me. And seeing the second film is where I saw like this whole narrative of the fish and this overload of meaning of that fish, that at the end kind of like sums up like a general idea of the film, which kind of like hands me a way into how to see that film. I don't know, I got that feeling that I was like, you talk about lineality also, and I sensed that I enjoyed three films, but it's this thing that I cannot help but see also in these two examples. And then with the third film, I can see it very clearly in this duality that I'm creating in my head between films that hands meaning on films that aspire to meaning in a way. I don't know if it was too long, but I jumping into ideas. I was like, yes. Well,
we have time. Yes, and maybe referring to to this gaze of the monkey you mentioned in Shambhavi's film. Khaled, we talked about this distancing and this. And it's also very present in with the monkeys. Like they gaze at us in one moment very directly, but also we see them from the back, like from a long distance. Yeah. Would you like to talk about it?
Just first, I want to count on the comment on the metaphor, because I had it, and I took decision like I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about my worry about using animals. But after you saw your work, it's exactly the opposite of using the animals as a metaphor, because I mean we are full of we have a lot of cultures that using animals as a metaphor, and sometimes those metaphors very discriminative, and because they could take it from animal, it could be applied to human, and it's two cultures. It's one culture that respect the animal and call the spirit of the animal for healing and also for worshipping, and the other one really look at the animal as a second, third, whatever, so race or creature, and how the three films just made this space to meet them without any judgment. It just this exchange has really, this is what I wanted to talk about at the beginning that I couldn't. But about the distancing, about Shambhavi film, sorry, it's first of all the distancing, which I felt it's really great quality, because I felt I'm in between. Is it a utopian or is it a dystopian space? It has a lot of distance. It makes me think a lot. At the same time, the film by itself, by editing and the dramaturgy, it opposes this distance. Suddenly I'm inside. Suddenly I'm outside. I'm left with this landscapes to reflect upon, and suddenly I see also. I started to see the monkeys is not only the protagonist, also the rocks, everything together. All of them are performing in your film, and you made them performing by the edit, which maybe we'll talk later about the edit, because I'm very interested to know how do you see edit and how do you use it. I noticed that you stopped editing your films since 2000. Okay.
No, I still edit my films, but this last film, I edited it. Yeah, I edited it with my mom, but yeah, we spend a lot of time in the edit room together. But no, I still edit. I'm very. I'll just say this. I collaborate with people who tolerate me, because I'm like a control freak. So one is like my partner, one is my mother. One is a former graduate student. I'm embarrassed to say it. They're all very nice people and very talented people. Very, very talented people. But yeah.
I'm asking.
But that might be an interesting question also about collaboration. I mean, I'd love to just, because this is so interesting, and then yours is so interesting. I think it would be fun to talk about, get into that. But I missed your question. What did I?
No. Just if you are still editing.
Oh
you're still editing.
Yeah, we can talk about collaboration. Also, Éléonore, you collaborated before, I think, with another filmmaker, and some footage from this is also in the film Camping du Lac. But maybe one last, and then we can close it with this also. Your film is also full of animals. Your last films were also they have a huge meaning, I think, in your films, but also referring to this metaphor. I mean, in your film there is this allegory with the fish, and I think you're always in your film. There's this huge interest in urban legend around animals and how people get obsessed with them also. But there's obviously, talking about narrative, this climate change narrative in it, and we talked about it at our opening conference about how to film stories about climate change. And yeah, so I wanted to ask you why was you're interested in this allegory of the fish related to climate change, and yeah, maybe first this.
Hello. I'm interested in climate change for a long time. I was a student of Bruno Latour in France, but a long time ago, and he was already talking about climate change, and people thought it was just a fairy tale. And now it's more clear that it's not. But I think it could be a beautiful resume of my movie, that climate change is not a fairy tale. The fish is an allegory of the notion of nature, but also in the Catholic religion, it's an allegory of belief. And in different cultures, it is always an allegory of something different. But I think, yeah, it's really what interested me in this movie is more what can be our relationship to a fish. For some people, it is food. For some people, it is a friend. It can be a pet. For some people, it is something we have to protect because it's disappearing from the surface of the world. And for some people, it is a totem animal. For some people, it is, I don't know, but it is a monster that you have to fear. And that's what I was interested in my movie. Each of my movies is about animals, and in this one I wanted to wonder what a fish can tell. But before I made a movie about ships on an island, so they are left in liberty, so they tell something about the territory where they are in. And yes, it's true that each of my movie is starting with the aspect of considering an animal on a territory, but actually what interests me is the relationship of the animals with the people, because it tells a lot of the relationship between the people and their territory. And also it's something, when I started making movies about animals, like maybe 20 years ago, it was a very childish subject. So you can arrive anywhere and say, okay, I'm making films about animals, and everybody will be okay to work with you. It's not political, it's a bit dumb, it's yeah. And now it starts to be a problem to make films about animals, and I think people begin to be aware of it.
Why?
Because it's related to the way we act with what is around us. I mean, it's a natural resource, and so it's I mean the way the capitalism deals with the world is inside this thema. And it's clear for everybody now, but 15 years ago it was not. I mean, now the people have eco-consciousness, and they didn't have in the. I made a film also about how the animals were used in the 80s and transported from a territory to another one, and after having been used for traffic drugs, for example, they were released in the nature, and we left them live, and they multiplied themselves, and it became a problem, and we became conscious of the fact that it is a problem to use animals as objects. But 20 years later, when they started to be like thousands of green parrots in the streets of Brussels, for example, or the hippos of Colombia in the Magdalena starting to become dangerous and
brought there, I think, by Pablo Escobar, right?
Yeah.
Or it's a legend, but no, never. Yeah.
No, actually, I made the first film about Pepe, the hippo of Pablo Escobar. And now I didn't see the fiction, but I see that there is a movie about this.
Yeah, I think it's going to premiere in 2 days. Yeah, but you said in an interview also, climate change is not some fairy tale, and you said it now again, and you're really afraid of what we are going to leave to our children, but you chose the way of using this fairy tale again, and you mentioned a bit before in our talk why you had to choose also this way of addressing it. Maybe, yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, it's a bit delicate, but I shot this movie in Bretagne, which is an area where intensive agriculture is very present, and there are a few agricultors who bought all the lands to make to grow pigs and also to feed them. And they put a lot of pesticides also in the plants, and so they pollute a lot. And the pig's shit pollute a lot. It goes in the waters, and it pollutes the waters of Bretagne, and it goes in the sea, and it makes something called algues vertes in French, which is green seaweed. And it is polluted, and it's like a poison, and it poisons the dogs and the horses, and also one man died of it. And when the journalists started to talk about this in Bretagne, they were threatened by this lobby of industrial agriculture. So the trans woman in the movie, she works on the local radio, and she's a fellow of the first journalist who talked about this problem of algues vertes. And after she started to make a reportage about this, she found her car, how do you say, the wheels of her car were sabotage, you know? There was a sabotage on her car, and also her dog was poisoned, and so there is a real intimidation about those ecological problems there. So the people who live there, who come there to live, or who are from there, or who come to live in the nature, actually they live in a landscape that is made by the French agriculture, which is very intensive. And so they are very implicated in that kind of problems, and they are very scared to talk. And so that's the people with whom I made this movie. So I had to use the tail shape, the form of tail, to talk about that fear of seeing the landscape collapse.
Yeah, and maybe to also come back to your question, Shambhavi, you said you collaborated with the people that are living there. How was it? How did you feel, or how did you create the story with them? And also, I think you created this sculpture at the ending, the fish, with them in a way, or with local?
No, for the sculpture, I had to work with people, with specialists of Muppets, and because it is a Muppet, there are two persons inside and activating it. And I must say I'm a sculptor first. I'm a visual artist, and I made an exhibition about with giant sculptures of giant fishes before I made this movie on another territory with the people of the territory and with their skills. And on this new territory, I wanted to make a movie with the people and with their skills and their problems. And so I arrived there. It was an artist residency. I was supposed to stay 2 weeks, and finally I stayed 1 month, coming back each time I could. When I had vacation, I rented a mobile home in the camping. And so I started to know the people very well, and to know to ask them, how could you, how could we make a film together? So I used the skills and the goods of them, and I rewrited the story, because first of all there is a book. There is a book from Russell Banks from the 70s, which is an anti-militarist book, a novel. And it's also an anti-capitalist novel, and I made an adaptation there on this territory and with these people. So it's not about Vietnam anymore, it's about Bretagne. And I made the adaptation with the stories I found there. So in Vietnam, for example, the fish was linked to through the Buddhists to the god of painting. It was a reincarnation of the god of painting, but it would be nonsense to tell that story in Britain. But in Britain there was this story of the Saint-Corentin who had fish. And sorry, I've lost myself. I don't know what was the question.
No, I think how this, how you connected this story with the fish, with the mythological background of Saint-Corentin and the book. You mixed these stories up then.
Yes, I really adapted to the territory, to the people, and my idea was really to work with them. So I asked the priest to tell me a story with a fish, and I also asked the people in the camping to what are you able to give to a fish story which would be there in the lake. So each one gave what it was okay to give. It was a kind of okay process. Like I said okay to everyone, and I started to put to everything in my scenario to make everything fit with my original story. So it was totally adapted, and at the end you don't recognize the novel anymore. So for example, let's be concrete. The guy, the woman, the old woman who makes herself a tattoo. She really lives
the fish tattoo
in the camping.
Yeah.
And and the guy who makes tattoo, he really lives in the camping also, and he makes tattoo to the people. So she made a fish tattoo for the movie. She wanted to have a new tattoo anyway, and for the movie she made a fish tattoo. And the guy made the real tattoo with his hands, but he didn't want the public to see his face because he's a bit shy, because maybe he's not perfect for the French administration and so on. But he has his reason. He said, okay, you can use my camping car, you can use my clothes, you can use my car, you can use my my toys, everything, but I don't want people to see my face, so I had to take an actor to work. And the actor is a friend of mine, and Actually, you talked about collaboration. The film was made with really no money, and I just asked also my friends to help with their skins. Like the music was made by a friend. The actor, also the actor, I absolutely wanted someone who is in love with the fish and who has sex with the fish. And this I could not ask to the people who lived in the campsite to film them naked in the lake. And so I asked a friend of mine who is a circus actress to come. And all the film is a collaboration with friends and family. The son in the movie is actually my son. It is not the son of Louise, but Louise doesn't have children, and she wanted to be in the movie. She wanted to be a mother. She wanted to be a cisgender woman with a child, and as I have a child, I said, okay, I'm going to give you my child for the shooting. And she also made the cooking for everybody. She made the catering. She was behind and in front of the camera. And I don't know if one feels it when one sees the movie, but it's really a bricolage movie. Like everybody was at different posts while we made that movie. So it's also like you say, I edit my movies with my mother or my boyfriend. Also the bad guy in the movie with the cowboy, the guy who takes the water to make black market is actually the father of my child. And we needed tourists, a lot of tourists, for example, to dance in the party. And we asked some friends and some people of the team to wear T-shirts and to go inside the real party to make more tourists. But it's just like we are a few people transforming the reality. We shoot on real sets, but each one with his skills. Because the people of the camping also became my friends after 1 year, so there was no really difference between professional and no professional people.
Yeah, Natalia, would you also like to talk about collaboration a bit? Because also in all your films, I think you're collaborating with one female actor or actress or protagonist. Also all the time in 16 millimeters, right? So yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking, because I think some of you already, like, there was a notion, we talked about, like, filming non-exploitatively and how to approach it. And I knew I wanted to make a film with Sveta, but I also struggled a long time to how to approach it and how to film her in a way that doesn't like reactivate like a male gaze, and like especially in this like very delicate age of hers. And for me, the solution was like having this collaborative aspect with her and like being very much in accord of being on the same page of what is happening. And so the first part actually happened very spontaneously, because actually in the moment I just decided she would approach the horses, and she did. And then I asked her, hey, can I maybe start already filming while you approach the horses? Because actually it was like meant to be a warm-up of she just engaging with them, and she was really anxious also to see them. And then the second part, for me it was really important then to explain to her the camera and how it worked, and like to let her look through it. and to explain her the process of the analog camera. And it was also just us. Everything was closed there. We were just there together, and to like give her all the freedom she had. And so she decided that for the part where she is a horse, she wanted to like wear her horse mounting clothes. And so with time, when she understood what my idea was, she was like very engaged and of like also bringing in the plastic traffic barriers and like to jump over them. And she had the idea of creating the circuit and like jumping over them, and it was really beautiful for me she like added much more than I ever could have expected to the film through it, and it then finally like it opened for me like how I should have, like it was the perfect way to approach it with her.
Maybe Khaled, you also collaborated in your last in Purple Sea. I mean it's a very, very different film, but maybe some ideas, or do you feel close to these ways of collaboration?
Of course, I mean I think they are so much important for me. It's especially that recently, because I'm inside unusual circumstances like the war, the fleeing here. The films I do are very personal, but at the same time I spend a lot of energy to distance myself as a person, and to make the personal as much as I could collective at least for who has experienced what I experienced, even if I'm not in the middle of the events like Purple Sea, because my partner, she was in the seawater. The film is about a fleeing to Europe, and the boat was crashed in the middle, and Amal was holding a camera just to document her, so she didn't expect what's happening, and this is like a waterproof camera, so the camera stayed filming without any control, even without any notion, because she was trying with the others to survive their life. And with those films, you get in a very, very, very difficult position, because you are inside all your awareness working that you are outside, and you can't do it alone. You need people around you to have an exchange with them, to give you reflections, memorying, and also to distancing you. And here I'm talking about the film team. It's as a dramaturgy, I always work with the dramaturgy team, and also because I make editing. This is why I ask you about the editing. I have this conflict, like, okay, I'm gonna stay all my life editing myself, or is it? Yeah, but there is one film I had also worked with an editor. So the collaboration, I think it's very important. It's essential aspect in the cinema. I mean, it's a very necessarily exchange, because it's not about you, even if it is your personal story or your vision. You open up to other ideas, perspectives, not affecting your position, because if you have a position, a clear position, then you will see anything in you. It will not be opposing you. It will be in your it will be looking at your position also. So yeah, this is all what, and I work with since I came to Germany, I work with the same team, yeah, and
with Pong.
With Pong,
Mhm.
with Pong Film Production. Yeah.
Yeah, can you relate to this struggle of like distancing them and yeah, but also have this necessity of working together, which sometimes brings
I mean, I also wonder sometimes because I feel that sometimes it's also like one part of it is just acknowledgement. There's also that because there's always, I think a lot of filmmakers have people that they are working with or who are deeply engaged, who they're engaged with. Often their wives is one of the common people. You know what I mean? So so if you start to look at those kind of collaborations and you start to acknowledge them and start to say that this sort of exchange is actually part of the making, I think that it makes the work richer. And so I'm not saying that's all of it, but I think there's a part of it which is just like wrapping your head around what it means to be like a filmmaker and like, you know, what it means to collaborate, because it's hard to, the film is not just coming out from like the mind like this, you know. So there's that, and then I think it's about also kind of openness. It's a kind of openness like you were talking about, and you were talking about just a kind of openness that somebody else can like bring something to the table and you see it and it works and you just kind of go along with it. Yeah. So it takes a little bit of like giving up control.
At the same time, it's very necessarily exchange. I wanted to ask you about directing the people there. I mean, did you tell them what to do or?
Yeah, we imagined the scenes together, and I let them talk, but usually I cut all the dialogues at the editing. But I just keep, because it's not professional actors, so very often the dialogues are very, very false. I mean, it sounds really not credible. And but what we have made with these exercises of playing scenes with dialogues, improvised dialogues, stays in the way they act, the one to each other. And so the situations are created by that kind of exercises we make, exercises of acting. But I shoot a lot, really hours, and I keep a little, very little.
Speaking of openness, I wanted to ask a question about slow shift, because we were talking about politics and so on, and I think that slow shift is a film that talks about this subject in a way of climate change, or we are talking about here. And but does it in a way, in a very poetical way. In a way, you can grasp the idea, or maybe you can kind of interpret something else, but it's there in a certain way. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, about the title. I think it's a great present card for the film, to kind of open, this openness of the film.
The title, I thought one was just like literal, because these rocks are shifting very slowly. But then I also liked the sort of labor kind of connotation of it, like slow shift, like you're not working really hard. You're just kind of writing your shift. So yeah, I think those were the two things. But titles also kind of fun because they can be sort of generative, right? Like you put an idea out there and then people have to sort of figure it out.
Yeah, what meant the title for you, or what were your thoughts?
No, it was kind of that, kind of like as I saw the film, I was thinking about how Earth can change in a way, how Earth moves and it's moving, and it's also being transformed for the humans. And also one thing that caught my mind of slow shift, it's like the shots the camera is not moving in the whole film, and that kind of like brought me back to the kind of the origins of cinema, where cinema was an object for acknowledgement in a way, and I thought that was a nice cross of paths between poetry and knowledge in a way in this first film, and I think it's in that sweet spot where you kind of find the openness of slow shift. That was my interpretation of the film in a way.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a question from the audience, right? Yeah. I think we have. We need to take one of our mics to the audience. I can, but yeah.
I was just curious because you started talking about titles. How you relate to the title of our program, which is Imitation of Life. And I believe it's a lie, this title, as much as in the Douglas Sirk films, which are definitely not imitating life, but maybe creating some artificial world. And I feel that your films, when I watch them, they don't feel like life. Life is much harsher. Of course, it can be very beautiful, but your films are full of warmth, and there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of humor. Could we talk about your choices of making these films so mild, so warm, so welcoming? So much lacking conflict, which is so often part of cinema. So many films are defined by conflicts, and yours, I think, maybe are a bit less. Maybe there are some conflicts below the surface in some cases. Could you talk about that a little?
I start. No, for me, I would not say this because my film ends very badly, actually. And what has happened is that the end was already written, but I wanted to finish with this image of the empty lake, but I wanted to use archive images of the lake because it's an artificial lake with a dam, and before they used to put cameras. Before they used to empty the lake to check how the dam is, the state of the dam, and so they used to kill a lot of fishes just to check if the dam is okay. And the images are crazy, like it's really apocalyptic images, because in the bottom of the lake there are still houses staying. So when they empty the lake, you see the roofs of those houses, and it's really scary. And actually, what happened is that there was that summer canicule in Bretagne, which is a country where usually it's raining every day, and I wanted to make a very rainy movie. But we had just 2 days of rain and a very big sun and 42 degrees. And so I changed my plans, and we saw the lake evaporating in front of us while we were shooting the movie. So finally I totally changed my plans, and I brought my puppet directly on the set. I just waited 2 months that the lake is really, really, really low. Actually, I must admit that there are 2 very short images of footage at the end of the movie, but the level of the lake has really gone down, and people and this summer 3 whales have beached in Bretagne, so because of climate change, and so people were also really not laughing with that, and it's like if my scenario was a catastrophic anticipation scenario which became real. And also the people who came and didn't know it was a shooting were super scared, like, fuck, there is also here a whale beaching on the lake. And it was Yes, the question. Sorry, the question. Yeah, the movie is not so positive, but I think we had so much pleasure in making it, and that's what I wanted to show. That even in a terrible situation, the fact that we were all together, fighting together, and which is very present in Britain, and that, like, all those people are desperate, and they come here and they find each other, and they are together fighting against the rest of humanity, and this is very joyful, and I wanted to transmit this joyfulness of Bretagne.
I want to step into the idea of imitation and ask you a question about one cut. We talked about editing, and I was, and it's one particular cut that caught my attention. It's one of the pharmacists cutting the feathers of a chicken, I think, and you cut to a boy being that's being his hair is being cut, yeah. And I wonder how you think that cut, and I don't know what's the idea you had during the editing of that, because it's quite I don't know, it caught really my attention that cut.
You should ask that to my editor.
And what do you think?
No, it's true. I didn't think the cut. I didn't write it. Okay. But actually, my son in real life, he has very long hair, and he never wants me to cut his hair. And Louise, she used to be an hair cutter in real life before, and so she used that skill in the movie. And she also is the killer of the village. I mean, people have animals there. They have little farms in their houses because there are a lot of resistant people, and she's the only one who still is able to kill a chicken or to kill not fish. I mean, people are able to kill fishes. Everybody can kill a fish now, almost. But chicken is more complicated. But she does it. She does it without problems. And they cut the chicken's wings just for them not to escape. Yeah. And so I had all these materials, and my editor found the cut between the haircut and it's the notion of élevage, that you can take care of your child as you take care of your chicken.
What did you think about the cut?
No, I just like, I don't know if it's like an exaggeration of what, but I thought that it was kind of like a little metaphor of the film, in this sense of reality being continued, but not continued, a fiction put like into on top of a reality, you know, like you have this that's a documentary part of the film, we can say, if we talk in those terms, which they are doing that for the bird to not to fly, and suddenly we got to the whole fiction part, we can say, that it's like the film works like that in a way, like two different parts that are linked together by this certain thing of imitation, I think, but one thing on top of the other, in a way. I don't know, it's kind of I need to think about it, but I thought it was kind of a little image of the whole film, that cut.
Yeah, there's another question from the audience.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Shambhavi, as much as I've seen the horse in the girl, or the girl in the horse, when I was actually watching today your film, I was thinking about how human these apes behave, how they are sitting around, they're hanging around, enjoying the sunset. Did you ever imagine that somehow? I felt like, well, of course we are, that's our ancestors, the apes, but then still is somehow like they are imitating us somehow. I felt today how so in relation to Natalia's film. Did you ever had any sensation when you were watching or making your film how they are sitting around there, and as well with when you have these cuts to the sun and whatever? I mean, it looks like a leisure moment of in the sunset somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I thought of it quite like that, though. I totally hear you and know. And I mean, these particular monkeys, they do live very adjacent to humans, you know, in general, and so that it wouldn't be surprised, and they're definitely very playful and responding to humans, and they'll come snatch your stuff, and like, you know, it's a whole thing. So it's totally possible. I mean, I want to be careful not to project, like, you know what I mean, but it makes sense. But the thing to me, I guess, since I'm sort of trying to explore this idea of like how to break down that sort of separation in a way, so it just feels exciting to be around landscapes or animals or things that where you sort of sense it, you know, you sense the closeness. I think that maybe that's what drew me to this, and it's also something that's so common in India in a way, you know. It may seem like something very uncommon, so there's also something nice about taking something that is so ubiquitous and then saying, okay, I want to see this as really special and not just this thing that is always around. So
yeah, there's a question in the second row. Yeah, maybe there are other questions. Please raise your hand. Okay, there also.
Good night, everyone. First of all, I want to say congratulations. It's very nice to see 3 movies directed by women, and very nice movies. My question is for you, Shambhavi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. But like, also regarding this topic of editing, I was very curious to understand, like, if before shooting the movie, because, like, for example, as you said, the movie brought this perspective, like bringing a lot of attention to the landscape, and then immediately I thought about this ancient landscape, like how many years took for all the stones to be shaped the way they were, like very beautiful. And I was wondering, like, if you interfere in the scenes while you're shooting, or if it's everything just natural, very passive work, because there were some noises, at least, and some reactions, like the monkey reactions, or apparently reactions to it. So I don't know if you have like a narrative before shooting, or the narrative comes when you're editing.
I think a lot comes with the editing, but specifically in terms of the interference, of course, I couldn't move those rocks. Very, very big. But I suppose I intervened because there's all those scenes of the moving rocks, and those are green screen miniatures, right? So those were like tiny little rocks that I had set up in the studio. I shot those against a green screen and then put them in, so I inserted them into that landscape. So in a way I did intervene. And then with the langurs, of course, yeah, I mean, they're like, yeah, if you, for those people who some I know in the audience have been around, it's like to get a shot of them sitting still and just looking at you is that's the hard part, because they want to take your stuff. They want to come get your camera. I mean, they'll take anything. It's a thing. So that was a very interactive process and not really as observational. It wouldn't shock me, honestly. If I saw a langur making a selfie, it wouldn't shock me. Yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
So in the 6th row, I think there is a question. Yes. Are there other questions also from the audience afterwards?
Thank you. Yeah, my question has to do with Petra's question as well. So I want to know about the relationship of your 3 films to the idea of narrative, especially the idea of the human in the narrative. I mean, Shambhavi, your film, the human is kind of suppressed, and that creates like further suppressions of the ideas of chronology and scale and everything. So by removing the human, the idea of a narrative itself changes, the experience of the world. And in Éléonore, your film, it starts with the story. I mean, I'm going to tell you something odd that happened to me, but this single person perspective is kind of scattered into that of a community, and the individual is kind of dissolved into the community, as it were. And Natalia, your film, again, it's like it is probably not a narrative, it's more like a haiku, but it does something that's very unusual. It upsets the narrative in a very curious way, I thought, because usually when there's an animal, human qualities are projected onto the animal, but here it's the animal quality that's projected onto the human. So your general comments about the suppression of human or the individual in your films, and how do you approach narrative as such? I mean, there's a sense of play with the narrative in all 3 films?
Yeah. Would you?
I mean, for me, I think it goes back to the old thing. It's like, this is the political project, right? Because I think that anytime if we keep telling, I mean, no matter how good the science is, or how good your message is, or how good, if we keep telling like linear stories that have like, determined conclusions that are, where the narrative agent is like self-determined and completely in control of things or whatever, and if we're always just like worrying about what this one person's feelings are, or whatever their challenges are, I just don't think that's a very it's not a story that's adequate for what's going on right now. So I mean, I make short little films, so I don't want to make too tall a claim for my projects, but I think, I mean, just in terms of why would I sort of feel that this is important, I think, yeah, that's my feeling about it.
Yeah, would you like to say something, Natalia?
Yeah, I was thinking of it because I think it's my first film that's like more in a classic narrative sense, and I was thinking about it right now, and I think it's more, even maybe it can be seen as a narrative, but it's also, for me, it's more of a transformation, but maybe transformation is also a narrative. And I think that was the only like really fixed idea from the beginning, that there would be this transformation. And everything else she contributed. So it's also through her contribution, this transformation becomes a narrative, because I think she, by being herself and like everything that she brings through her character, through her expressions, through her being, makes it also, fills it also, this transformation into like more, maybe like a richer narrative that maybe we can also project and read from it, like more than what maybe we're seeing.
Yeah, but I mean, Srikan mentioned that it's like a haiku, it's like it has these 3 short elements, and I mean, that's also a huge decision. You can tell a transformation in many different ways. So, or is it just your general style of short movies, or what was the motivation to narrate it this way?
I mean, for sure, it's the style of working. Also, especially just like financially, the limitations also created this framework, because it was 2 rows of 60mm film. Also, like very, very few things were cut out, because like it was like maybe 6 minutes in total, and the film is 4 minutes. In itself, so a lot of it came from repeating and practicing and then filming, and what was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, why narrate it this way?
Yeah, the why narrated this way. I mean, the first part came very naturally because it was spontaneously developed in being like more of like documenting, maybe also intervening a little bit, but also more just showing her in this environment. And then I did have some scenes or some moments I really wanted to have. And for me, like, it was really important to have this moment where she looks into the camera defiantly. Mm-hmm. So that was like really a fixed point for me. Later in the editing, I decided to have it in the middle. But I really wanted her to also defy the camera and the viewer watching her. And so just like really beautiful moments happened through filming of like having this juxtaposition between the focus of first the horse and she in the background and then switching it, that happened through the filming. But yeah, it's also the way I'm working right now of just having very short films and like very compressed narratives in a short time.
Yeah, I have two more questions, but if there's one from the audience, we can also ask this. One short question related to this very short form. It is a very important aspect of feminist film, experimental film in Germany, for example, but in many parts to film in 60 millimeter and to this very short form. Is it like, do you see yourself in a tradition to it?
I think I'm heavily influenced by it. I mean,
Okay.
it's maybe even more in Pistoleras. I think the Pistoleras film is really for me an homage also to Valley Export and Joanne Jonas. I think I think I really admire and appreciate the freedom of like what I mean, even like just like the development of like handheld, more economical cameras that gave women to create their own films in like in a smaller environment and maybe like more intimate. And I think I just feel very close to it, and I think it's just something that feels very natural for me to adapt, and like I do really enjoy this way of working.
Maybe my last question related to this as well, and it's a question to all of you and maybe all people on stage, because this intimacy that is also, I think, in Slow Shift very present when this monkey stares at us. There's this quote, also John Berger wrote about it, that these animals don't reserve a gaze for us. They are not interested in us, but we believe they are interested in us because they look in our eyes and stuff like this. And I feel that all your films, also this, the camping side, it feels for me sometimes, and it's a general problem I think with documentary cinema, but with cinema in general, that you feel invasive in a way when you watch it. And it's the same when the monkey stares at me, it's like, okay, why are you looking at me? And it's a bit also when I saw Horse Girl, it felt such an intimate moment, her transformation, that I was like, yeah, it feels like, how do you deal with this invasive mode of watching in general? It's maybe the huge...
That's very curious, because when the monkey looked at the camera, I felt like invited into the film, not or the other way around. It was like we're kind of being connected right now. I don't know. I thought that way. So to me, it's very curious the way you look at it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Are there more reactions to it? Not really.
The first films I made was shooting my neighbors.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean also invasive, or you went to a touristic place or to a place you don't know, where I mean you lived there 1 year then, but yeah, how do you deal with this fact that it's not that or the other touristic space and Slow Shift, that you reproduce this touristic gaze also? I mean, you obviously don't, but it's a huge question, I think, right?
in Bretagne, they have a double point of view about tourism, because after COVID, people from Paris, not all, but lot of people bought houses in Bretagne, but next to the sea, not in the center. The center of Bretagne, where I shot, is really empty, and the tourism makes opportunities to make money. So some people say, let's open to tourism. They want to construct a bridge over the lake. So that's also something now, a big debate between the people. Should we do it or not?
Yeah, and there was this 3 Parisians go home. It's sad.
Yeah, yeah. And there are a lot of people who really hate Parisians. And for me, it was easy because I said, no, I'm not Parisian. I live in Brussels, in Belgium. So they were more okay. But actually, I'm Parisian. I'm from Paris, but I live in Brussels. So.
All right. Yeah. If nobody wants to ask a question, then I would close the debate. Is there any last question? Okay, no. So yeah, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and saying. And yeah, for everyone who wants to join us at Hackesche, please, feel invited.